This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. A lot of people love to talk about trades. The trade deadline is a week away, and the Cleveland Browns are in a very odd place where they might need trades, they might not. But I'm going to talk about some of the trade targets out there, if I think that these would be useful trade targets for the Browns to go after. And then also, do I think these would be trade targets that the Browns are actually going to pursue, in my opinion? Let's get into it. And the first guy I have here is DeAndre Hopkins. I am in favor of this move. I was in favor of going after him in the trade market last year, in free agency. And the reason I'm in favor of this isn't because I think he is still the DeAndre Hopkins of old, but he's still enough of the DeAndre Hopkins of old to be effective. And also, when we're talking about Deshaun Watson, who is at risk to play even less games than he was projected to play this year. And it's not like the brother has played a lot of football in the last 3 years. So you're talking about a lot of just rust and unfamiliarity that he's walking into. I think D-Hop is a nice, familiar safety blanket for him to go to. And I think that that's part of what this offense is missing. There is a connection between Deshaun and Coop, but I think Deshaun, or whoever is out there, PJ Walker, whatever quarterback you throw out there, needs another person to really rely on, to say, hey, it's getting crazy, let me throw it up to this player. And for Deshaun especially, I think getting DeAndre Hopkins helps a lot, because he complements Deshaun Watson's play style. Deshaun Watson will hold the ball and throw the ball up to try to make a play. And as much as I dislike that habit that he has, that is the habit that he has. You can either try to force him out of it, which has not looked like we've made any progress on that, or you can do things to make that habit less dangerous. Since you are not able to force him out of it, it's time to do things to make that habit less dangerous. And getting a guy like D-Hop really helps. A guy who understands how Deshaun Watson likes to scramble, what he likes to do once he breaks the pocket, and where he likes to throw the ball versus what looks, would be very helpful. And I think it would turn a lot of those last minute, just trying to throw it up plays from almost interceptions to receptions. D-Hop really helps Deshaun Watson in the sense of giving him a safety blanket. He might not be the guy that you go to on 3rd and long, but if the pocket's muddy and Deshaun has to make a throw, I think D-Hop can be there and be a reliable target for him. I think D-Hop can be that for PJ Walker. If PJ Walker has to play a ton, if DTR has to play, I think D-Hop can still be that. He's not going to be the elite D-Hop of old. You're not going to get 1,200, 1,500 yards or 10, 13 touchdowns from him anymore. But you can get that out of him. And the reason I think trading for D-Hop is a really good idea as well, because I think the value's not that high. He's older. The contract's already paid for, so the money's not that expensive. And you got no real trade solution. So I think D-Hop would be fine to get there. I think it'll cost you a mid-round pick, and I think that will be fine for a 1-year rental, just to get, if Deshaun is out there, him comfortable. If it's not out there, give somebody a safety blanket. But I think just having a familiar presence for Deshaun Watson and having a presence like D-Hop for the other quarterbacks will be something that is very, very useful. And I would like if the Browns would look into that. Do I think they will? It's tough. I don't really think they'll look into it, because this just is not the direction of how they've acquired players in the past. Like, you could point to Amari Cooper, but it's been very few and far in between that they traded for a veteran. Zadarius Smith is in there, so it's possible. I just don't think the genuine interest is there from Andrew Berry on DeAndre Hopkins. I think Deshaun wants it. I think there's some players that want it, but I don't know. I don't think it has a high possibility of happening, but I would want it to. All right, the second guy on my list here is Jacoby Brissett. Now, the question with trading for Jacoby Brissett is that this front office and Kevin Stefanski have to ask themselves a couple of really hard questions and answer those questions within a week. And you might just not have enough time to answer these questions. The first question you want to ask yourself and answer is this Deshaun Watson injury something he could play football with? Or is this something to where we're going to be clenching our butt cheeks every time he gets touched? If it is of the clench butt cheeks variety, and every time he gets touched, we're going to call a timeout and make sure he can rotate his arms and throw and everything else, then he can't play. He can't play. If it is of the variety of he could take a hit and still play and be fine and still not require any major surgery, if he plays slightly hurt or bruised or swollen or anything of that kind, then we're all good, right? Then bringing in Jacoby Brissett is pointless. The other question to be asked and answered is, where do you feel like you can get DTR to during the course of this year? Now, I know a lot of people, because of that Baltimore game, are ready to throw DTR out the window after him being hyped up in the preseason and playing terrible one game in the regular season. I don't think that one game does a good job of defining DTR. I think it was a tough situation for him to be in. The team found out Saturday night that Deshaun couldn't play. He had a day to prepare against a team that is ultra familiar with you and how you play football in the Baltimore Ravens. And it's your first NFL football game, and you're going up against a veteran defense that is ultra familiar with your offense. It's a division game. It was a tough spot for any quarterback to be thrown in. PJ Walker, Josh Dobbs, Jacoby Brissett. It would have been a tough ask to ask that player to have a good game in that game, no matter who it was. Even if it was like Deshaun Watson's first game back from injury, that would have been a tough ask for anybody. So for DTR, I don't really blame him for having a bad game. My question is, hey, if you're Kevin, if you're Andrew Berry, at what point do you consider it? At what point do you say to yourself, do we think DTR with the week of prep could be better than PJ Walker? Could be as good as Jacoby Brissett? It seemed to be that you believed this at some point because you made the kid the backup to start the year. So those are the two questions. Where are you at with DTR? Are you in full protect, he not playing for the rest of the year mode? Which I think would be a little bit over conservative. Like, let's not act like that was a first true start for him. Like, he had a whole week to prepare. Like, he had a day and he's playing a team that's familiar. It's a division game. It went bad. Like, let's not overreact to it. Or are you in the mode of like, hey, man, if I give this kid a week, you know, it's been enough weeks in the NFL to where he has had time to forget that and move off of it. I think he could be prepared and be a pretty decent backup, if not a good starter. I think he deserves that chance. And that's why I don't think they would trade Jacoby. Now, if I'm just looking at this from a pure player standpoint, not thinking about things down the line and how trading for Jacoby Brissett is going to complicate what you have to do with your depth chart and who you have to roster at quarterback, if you're going to put Deshaun on IR or if you're not, because then you have to get rid of one of these dudes and it becomes a whole mess. Like, I would just love to have Jacoby if none of that was complicated. because I like Jacoby. I know what Jacoby is, and I know what you can expect out of Jacoby Brissett. And if this was a long-term theme, I have no problem with bringing in Jacoby Brissett if we're going to put Deshaun on IR for the rest of the year. But if that's not the case, I think if we're looking at, I'll call it not a long-term solution, not a short-term solution, but a mid-term solution. If we're looking for a interim solution, that's the word for it, actually. Interim solution, DTR probably is a better solution than going out and trading a bunch of draft capital you already don't have to try to get Jacoby Brissett in the hopes that Jacoby Brissett could come in and plug and play at quarterback. And you know that Jacoby Brissett's probably going to take 2-3 weeks to get ready to play. So, nah. As much as I like Jacoby, as much as like if it were free, if they cut him, yeah, bring him on. I don't care. But trading for him, I don't think you can do it. And I think that we're underestimating where this team is with DTR at this point. I think at some point we were overestimating how high the team was on DTR. Now we're a little bit under what the team is on him. I think they're higher on DTR than what most people think, but lower than what people thought coming into the season, if that makes sense. All right. Another target that this team could go after is offensive line in general. And I say offensive line in general because I have no marquee names to say to you that they're going to get. I don't think they're getting Colton Miller. I don't think they're going to go after Garrett Bowles or they're going to get like Ezra Cleveland, who's starting for the Vikings. I think this is a team that's going to look at some guys who are sitting on the bench, guys I brought up in my video with Corey. And that's where they're going to look at for offensive linemen, more projects than plug and play starters. Also, Jet Wills, he's up and down. He's been an up and down player. He had his downs early in the year. Looks like he's about to have his ups coming up. So, you just got to ride that roller coaster and see what you could do long term to get rid of him. But I think the solution for Jet Wills or replacing Jet Wills comes in the offseason, not necessarily during the season. And I think that we're just going to be starting Jet Wills for the rest of the season. As far as running backs go, I've seen Derrick Henry be thrown out here. I don't think the Browns are trading for a running back. I think they might sign somebody, but I don't think they're trading for a running back because it's kind of similar to the Jacoby Brissett conversation. One, they feel like they might have some solutions with. Let me make this clear. Let me clarify. I don't think they're trading for a big name running back. Maybe they trade for like a guy that was on our draft boards, like the 5th or 6th round or something like that. But they're not going to trade for Derrick Henry. The reason they're not going to trade for Derrick Henry is they just took out all the Nick Chubb oriented run stuff. So they can't just throw that back in, right? They've already made the decision to move off of it. If they did not want to move off of it that bad, they would have made a trade a while ago. So they're not going to make one now at the trade deadline after getting rid of all that infrastructure. They're just going to have to move on, get some supplemental guys, make it a committee. And the offensive line, they've been 1 or 2 blocks away. I think they're betting on that offensive line finally getting it together, hitting their stride later in the season in the run game, benefiting from that. And to give the Browns credit, like the run game's been fine. It's not been great, but it's been fine. After losing Nick Chubb, which is better than what most people would have anticipated. So I don't think they're going to panic, make a move there for a running back. I think they're going to be all right with what they have. As far as other quarterbacks go, I've heard things as crazy as like Kirk Cousins. Look, Jacoby Brissett's as wild as they're going to get for a quarterback trade, and I don't think they're making that trade. I think their solutions for this team, they feel like they have most of them on the roster, except for wide receiver and offensive line. So if the Browns make a move, I would expect wide receiver, offensive line. And I wouldn't expect a big name at offensive line. The one position I would not say I would expect, but the one position I would say I wouldn't be surprised if it were a big name is wide receiver. Now, big name relatively, like DeAndre Hopkins, like a big name, but not like in his prime. Like they're not going to trade for like, I don't know, with like Tyreek Hill or something like that. That wasn't on the list of options, or Justin Jefferson. They're not trading for anybody like that, but they're going to trade for like a D-Hop, I would hope it's a veteran, right? The last thing I want to see them do is trade for Jerry Jeudy. If they do it, I'll try to see the bright side of it, but I just think we have enough projects on this team. And I get that a lot of these projects have panned out, but not necessarily at the wide receiver position. So I want a vet. You know what I mean? Amari Cooper been the best wide receiver on this team. He's not a project. He's a dude that was a finished product that you traded for. I would like another one of those. Right? Amari Cooper's working out great for you. Let's get another one of those. Let's go for a D-Hop, something along those lines, like an age veteran that's still decent. So that's where I would go. Let me know where you would go with these trade targets in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.